welcome to another episode of Legal Unicorns. I'm very delighted to say that we have reached about 50,000, just over 50,000 downloads in only 10 interviews so far. So thank you to everybody who's subscribed and downloaded. We're moving very fast. Please obviously like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can, or download it on your favorite podcast. Look for Legal Unicorns. As our guest today knows, and as everybody who listens knows, the purpose of the Legal Unicorns podcast is to shine a light on young African legal talent coming through in the marketplace, doing something different, doing things differently. And my guest today, and I'm going to pronounce your name completely wrong, but that is my fault, and I do apologize. Please, can you give me the correct pronunciation?
Sure. So it's Xhanti.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Xhanti. So I always say to people, it's like, or at least for me, it's a click on the left side of your mouth, Xhanti.
Yeah, I'm going to practice. I'm going to practice.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it.
If you do it in one go instead of splitting it up, then it feels much easier.
Yeah, I'm going to try it again later. I'm actually losing a bit of nerves, if I'm brutally honest. But look, like I said to you earlier, it's really important for me, everywhere I've lived in the world, to really try to keep practicing to pronounce people's names properly. I think the people who aren't conscious of that, and I've seen a lot of it when I spent 10 years in Asia, I saw people not even bothering to try. Yeah. And I always just think that is the height of disrespect if you don't. So my apologies if I get it wrong. Please, I'm an imbecile. This Pommy is an imbecile. I will, by the end of the podcast, I will keep going. So apologies for that. But look, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast. I'm delighted that you could come to our office here in Cape Town. So thanks so much for that. Yeah. Really, because I've looked at your background and I've looked at as much as I could find about you on your journey. And you were one of the people that I wanted to pinpoint. And when you said you would appear, I'm so thankful for that. Yeah. Because I think you are, and again, I'm reading between the lines and we'll find out, but you've had an interesting journey so far, and I think you've got a lot of energy and a lot of drive, and there's a big future ahead of you. So thanks again for joining us. What I'd like to do, obviously, at the moment, we're going to go through your whole life and your journey to where we are today. But obviously, it would be remiss of me to say that you're a corporate commercial attorney. You'll get on to where you trained and what you did, and you're now very much in the renewable energy space, which is obviously, I mean, you can't put on the internet or open a news site without it being all about renewables. Yeah. In fact, I'm busy signing a contract for my own solar paneling in my house. But I would love to explore that a little bit further as well as a topic. And then obviously what we'll do at the end is, we've got a couple of questions from our locals audience, which we'll obviously break off and do. So please, tell us all about yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself now, and then take us from the journey from Port Elizabeth to here.
Cool. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I am a senior legal advisor in a renewable energy company. I've been there now for about a year and a half, and really, really enjoying it. It's one of those industries that before I worked there, I'd actually never really done kind of renewable work, but my corporate and commercial base has really assisted in that. So how I landed here, how I even landed in Cape Town, actually all started in a small little town, well, maybe not that small, but on the coast of PE, on the coast of the Eastern Cape, called PE, now Gqeberha. And so I was born there, bred there, went to high school there, went to university there, and, during university, I want to say about third year, maybe towards the end of second year, we had this kind of like big roadshow of all the big 5 law firms, and a couple of like medium law firms come through and present to us of like, hey, if you want to work here, this is what you kind of need to achieve. And up until that point, I always thought I'm going to be this like big human rights lawyer. And it's only until I saw that and started getting introduced to like kind of your commercial modules that I was like, actually, I think life is pushing me in a bit of a different direction. So so in my third year, I got recruited to one of these big 5 law firms and then made the move to Cape Town. And so I've been here ever since. That's about 2017. So since moving here, I got married, had a child, have another one on the way.
Right. This is brilliant. And congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't want to rush through this. For those, we're very lucky and fortunate to have listeners from overseas.
Yeah.
So those who don't know South Africa, Port Elizabeth is up... those who may have visited would have to drive on the garden route for quite a while. Yeah. I've done it myself. 8 hours. I've done it myself from Addo Elephant Park back to Cape Town, and it was 10 hours. Sure. So yeah, it's a fair old drive. Port Elizabeth is a port city. Yeah. Quite a big city now. It's growing, certainly, isn't it? But the Eastern Cape is for those who haven't ever visited. Do yourself a favour and go on a road trip through the Eastern Cape. Definitely. Spoken as someone who's made this country my home, it is beautiful, especially places like Hogsback and places like that. Yes. But the whole place is beautiful. But it has, as a region, it has its tough times, right?
It really does.
You know, we've had a former guest on, Rory Sang, who grew up in the similar area, and during the apartheid years, and it was pretty awful. Yeah. And then subsequently, latterly, it's kind of it suffers with droughts. Right? The farmers have got a really tough time. The weather is not fun for those, but it's well worth a visit. But it's a smaller city in comparison. Yeah. And then when you grew up there, I mean, how was life? Just out of interest, growing up, was it okay? I mean,
it was good. It's like being a smaller city, you kind of get to know everyone, and you know it's much more, I want to say, compared to maybe other places in the country, definitely a much more friendlier and like communitarian type of place. But you do see, once you move out, like when you do visit back, that maybe the things we considered normal at the time, maybe in other bigger cities, weren't as normal. So I think, you move to Cape Town, and I think just generally the spatial planning around Cape Town, you can move around and not really be confronted with poverty as much as maybe when you're back in the Eastern Cape, because it's just very visible. It's kind of in your face. And, I think growing up at the time, I just assumed that, in life you just get people who are maybe struggling a bit more. But it's only when we moved out that it really hit us quite starkly that it's a side of the country where much more resources is needed.
I think that's a fair point, and I think you described it really well there. It's just from a visitor's perspective, you can tell it needs investment. Yeah. People need some help. Yeah. There needs to be some business moving there. Yeah. There needs to be some investment from the province into the resource. Well, not the resources. Well, I suppose the resources. Just to get things going. Yeah. And I suppose it's interesting. Sorry, I've just been distracted by the fact that the cat has just jumped behind you. He's gonna get himself. If we hear a cat on the mic, then it'll be the fact that he's just coming from outside. Anyway, I was distracted, but it is. I suppose for someone like yourself, did you have the dream of moving to the bigger city, Cape Town or Joburg? Yeah. Was that something that was in you from a younger age, or what were your dreams and aspirations when you were younger?
Yeah. So to be honest, I really love PE, but another kind of the downsides of a smaller town is sometimes it's hard to dream outside of that town. So growing up, I was just like, I am going to go to the same schools my brothers went to school to. And then I'm just going to work kind of the same jobs that I had a point of reference for. And so it's only when I really got to university that I was like, wow, there's actually like a whole world outside of, PE. We'd often visit Cape Town and visit other places, and you'd see it. I only saw those kind of places as holiday destinations. So never really as this is where I could live. But I would say that sort of towards my end of my university career, I started to really look into, if I want to practice law, like, what do I want that to look like? And once I started pinpointing what I wanted that to look like, I started realizing more and more that I might be in a position to make a move outside of the city. And so then I started looking into that a bit more, and it now really like created this desire of like, hey, actually, Cape Town looks like, pretty great. I grew up close to the beach, so there's the beach here.
Yep.
I go like once a year, but
maybe not at the moment.
Yeah, I always see Table Mountain. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be the year I hike up it, but never happened.
It hasn't happened yet. I get it.
And so really that kind of like that, wish of being like, actually, you know what, this I want to dream bigger than sort of just what I can see. And
so that came to you later on, just as you started sort of thinking, really, what do I want my career in law to look like?
Yeah.
You started thinking, okay, I probably need to move out of.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I guess you were probably thinking, well, I'm happy in PE, and I'm happy here, and I've got my friends and family. That's interesting. And the reason why I'm picking that up is because we do have a lot of listeners who are, the next generation coming through. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we get a lot of emails, which is always wonderful. So please keep them coming in. Finding professionals like yourself, the story and some of the inner thinking in terms of the moves, that's really inspirational because they're obviously sitting there, as we all do when we're at university, thinking, I'm probably the only person who's ever thought this ever. I don't know where to go next. And we could sit there and argue until we're blue in the face about how useful the universities are when it comes to career choices. They have a little bit of room to be better, I think.
Definitely.
But it's interesting that it started to form on you, and you're thinking, this is where I want my career to go. Just before I move away from your upbringing and move into your studies, your family, is it quite a big family, a small family?
Yeah, so I am the youngest of three brothers.
Okay.
And so one of my brothers actually lives in Cambodia.
Oh, wow.
The other lives in a place called Port St. John's. So
that's on the coast up towards
if you're going towards Durban.
Yes.
So his base there. So I grew up in...
So the other brothers have spread their wings as well.
And quite early on, actually. So they kind of like, immediately once they were done studying, they moved. What
does your brother do in Cambodia?
So he's a maths teacher. So,
wow. Good on him.
Which is crazy because I never expected my brother to teach. And then he was just like, actually, you know what? I feel like doing this, and then taught a bit in South Africa and then moved abroad and started teaching ever
congratulations
since.
to him. No, I know Cambodia I lived in Asia, so I went there for a holiday, but good on him for that. It's not, I can't think it would be the easiest place to get on, but he's obviously carving himself a nice little life. And, good on him. Well done to him.
Yeah.
So and your family still, your mum and dad, are they still
parents
with us?
are still in PE.
That's great.
They're still in PE and they love it. And
every phone call, mum's like, when are you coming back?
Yes. She's always like,
Good on you, mum.
Especially to see the little ones. I'm like, love me too.
No, you're well out of the question there.
Yeah.
I learned that very early on with my mum and dad. My mum's sadly not with us anymore, but my dad is, and I think whenever I get him on FaceTime, he sort of gives me about a minute, and then it's like, right, where are the other two? So I'm kind of used to it. But and you're about to have your second, you said as well, which is amazing. Yeah. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you very much.
It's double the fun, can I say? I'm sure you know what to expect.
Probably double the fun and half the sleep. So.
But I don't know. I mean, again, this is a very personal thing, but when we had our second child. For me, it really felt like a cube. It felt like the four of us were now a unit. And I'm sure other parents out there listening will get that. And I'm sure you'll have the same feeling. It's like, okay, I get it now. There's the four of us.
Yeah, definitely, and much more confident in the second time round. So
I mean, the first time we have kids, we all think, oh my word, is he still breathing? Is he still going? And now they always say by the third one, you're just like, whatever. But you were a third of, you were the youngest. Right? Well, that's cool. So I'm getting a nice picture of you. You obviously got older brothers, and everybody with brothers knows that means probably regular beatings.
Definitely.
All the things that come with sibling rivalry and upbringing. But it sounds like you had a nice upbringing, and PE is a lovely place. outdoors, like you say, by the beach, and then focusing on your studies, and Nelson Mandela University, which is also in PE, right? Because up there you've got you've got Rhodes, haven't you?
Yes, so about an hour and a half away.
Nelson Mandela University, great university, and then you're in there, you're studying law, but as a lot of us do, I think, when we go to university, there's usually a big interest in social, political, economic, human rights. So you think your interest and your passion was on the human rights side,
Yeah.
Is that something you thought you were going to explore?
Yeah, no, I definitely thought I was going to explore it. I think, once you confront it and you see, like you watch the news and you see all of this injustice happening, and, my heart was just like, I'm going to be the one to solve all of this. And not that I don't still have a heart for that, but I think my love just drifted away to more kind of commercial type things. And so even using the platform that I do have now to maybe have an impact on the people I work with directly. So I've kind of channeled that into that kind of space.
That's really good that you say that, because it's actually a very mature outlook. I think there's a lot of us out there that, especially when we go to university, that really start to understand, like you just put there, the injustices in the world, and you start to really it's the introduction to how the world really works, and then that it is deeply unfair, and then but it's unfairer for many others, and then, and I'm not saying this happened to you, but it certainly happened to me. You start to realize, dare I say it, the commercial realizations of the world is that actually, we've got to make money, we've got to eat, and if you've got an interest in business, you're more likely to go down that corporate commercial route, which I guess it's not to say that you're no longer interested in human rights. Clearly you are. It's not something that goes away, is it really? But the other side of you, like the business and the commerce side of you, starts to look at, this is a good market. I'm in a good profession. There's law firms out there that will take me. And I'm guessing that's where you start thinking, well, I'm going to start applying. Or actually, did you apply or did they approach you?
So they'd approached me.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'd approached me.
Which would suggest your marks are pretty good. Good on you. Right. Well done.
Yeah. So, I mean, even, around that whole space of, I think now I've really learned the lesson of really impacting your sphere of influence. So even, at my workplace now and where I've worked before, even just getting involved in like the kind of CSI projects that the company has to use that sphere of influence to kind of, make that impact that I maybe when I was a child of dreaming of, and be like, I'm going to be this like big person to change the world. And not to say that I can't be that, but I've learned more importantly, how can I change my world? Like, directly around me, what can I do to assist in that? So even like I always have my hand on the pulse of like, kind of the things that wherever I work. So how are we doing CSI? How are we impacting the communities we work around? Particularly, where I work now, we go and develop projects in some of South Africa's rural areas, which have very high unemployment rates.
Please tell me about this.
Yeah. So
carry on. Please.
So basically, where I work now, we are kind of primarily project development. So we develop and permit these, whether it be a wind project, whether it be a solar project, and then kind of flowing from that chain, we do what we call operations and maintenance, and also the building and the building of the projects and sourcing all kinds of stuff. But my primary focus is in the project development phase, because once we develop a project, we then sell it off to an independent power producer.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just trying to get a sense. So they would be at that department would be at an early stage, working with government, working with landowners, working
Correct.
whoever,
Correct.
all the stakeholders,
Correct.
putting together the development of the project, and then going, right, it's all signed off, it's all done, all legal and above board, and then you get the independent power producer to come and effectively buy the project from you.
Yeah.
And then you're involved in operations, maintenance.
Yeah, correct.
And these projects, I mean, you've touched on it there. I guess some would be for obviously huge commercial gain, but also there'll be some that will be community driven, I guess. So how does it work?
Yeah, so how it really works is, you know, when a project's being built, over the 2 years it's being built, it creates no less than about 200 jobs.
That's amazing.
So it's a really big driver of even why government backs, you know, the renewable energy industry so much, is it really does create jobs. So it's really important for me that in the communities we go into, of even kind of checking in with my own company of like, how are we building these jobs, and is there a way that, because you know these jobs will often be for 24 months, 36 months, but is there a way we can turn this over into permanent, you know, permanent jobs, or how do we impact the families of the people who, you know, work on these projects? So that's kind of, although we've got a dedicated economic development department, but those are the conversations I often have internally of like, how do we make this more than just a tick box approach, but actually make a lasting impact in these?
So you're having those conversations early on.
Yeah,
and that's
pretty early on.
So that feeds into you as a person, clearly, that, like you say, influencing your sphere of influence. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the realism is that in certain projects and certain parts of the country or wherever, if you do projects throughout Africa, I don't know, but sometimes it's impossible. It's a smaller project or something, and it's 24 months, it's going to be booked, and then there's one job for one maintenance guy. That's the realism of what's happening. But it's good that you're getting the firm to think about that early doors, because then, especially at the project development stage, because then you're really looking at, you know, from the word go, and it might be that someone immediately turns around and goes, it's just not going to be possible. Yeah. However, maybe
we can look at this, or
if you can just create 5 jobs for a town or a village post the major project. I mean, it all helps.
Yeah. And particularly in rural communities where, you know, it's very rare in rural communities where everyone in the household works. So often I like to think of the impact is far beyond just the one person we're employing, because that person is often feeding 4 other people.
At least 4.
Yeah. So, you know, I like to take that holistic approach to it, to be like, yes, it might look like only 5 on the books, but really the impact we have behind that is, you know, really setting up even the people connected to the person we're employing.
And are these mainly South Africa projects, or are they throughout Africa?
So we mainly have South Africa projects. We do have other projects in other parts of Africa.
But it's mainly here.
Yeah.
So it's familiar territory for you as well, in the sense that you won't always know exactly where what the town or the village is, but you'll have a rough idea, and it's your home. It's your you know, so it is having an impact. And for those listening who again have never been here, having driven through most of the country now, I can tell you that some of those rural towns are really struggling, and they really could. You can tell straight away that just with a bit of investment, especially on the renewable side. That it could really change their fortunes around. So that's fantastic. I guess that we try to not mention companies that one works for on this, because this obviously is about you as opposed to them. But you know, it won't take the listeners long to find you. And congratulations to that firm, doing great work. That's really, really good work. I think, you know, one thing I can certainly say about having moved here 7 years ago is that South Africa is not unique in challenges as a country. You know, I mean, you'd think if you listen to the news that it's the worst place on earth, but it really isn't. It really isn't. It's actually fantastic, and it's got really, really wonderful people who will, you know, 2 of whom are with me in the office today, but who really are resourceful and will dig deep, and that bodes well. But you know, it's good to see companies doing the same. Okay, so going back a bit of a step, again, really for the listeners that love to follow the journey of one's career, you've gone, okay, so one of the big fives come along in your final year and said, and how does that work? Does it work in the sense that they say, if you keep doing what you're doing, there's a place for you, or you know, just don't go off the rails, and then you've got a job for you?
So basically, I mean, you know, we like to run away from this fact that marks do play quite a crucial role in them identifying you. But I don't think it's as much of a role as if they determine whether they want to bring you on or not.
That's a really good point, actually, and I just want to harp on that for a minute, because in a much smaller way, it's this is top of my head because someone asked me this morning about LinkedIn profiles, CVs, and things, and I said, look, your LinkedIn profile isn't going to get you the job, but it might get you noticed. And
definitely.
And I said that line, and now you're saying it about it's exactly you're right. They're gonna. Rightly or wrongly, it's one of the criteria when they're doing graduate recruitment. And if you're at the top, then you're already, okay, well, let's put him in that part.
So they kind of identified me that way, and they were sort of doing like a bit of a roadshow. And, you know, the firm that actually had identified me wasn't the firm that I actually end up working with. And maybe we can touch on this, like the importance of relationships when it comes to when it comes to the legal profession. So I had interviewed with one firm, and they said, "Look, you've got a great CV, you've got a great academic track record. We just don't know if culturally, for their organizational culture, if you'll be the fit for us. But we work very closely with one of the other big five firms, and let's see if we can get you an interview in there." And then I was like, this is a bit strange. I mean, at the time, I think I was like 20, 21. So
it's nice that the firm is saying, you know, we're forward thinking enough to say, look, we're working with one of our competitors. We think you. I've always, just as a sidebar to that, and this is just something for me well, I don't want to bore the listeners again, but obviously I have been in this industry a very, very long time. It always makes me a little bit, not surprised, but I always think, when it comes to the reason that often HR give is, we're not sure you'd be a cultural fit. Which is a line that's been used for a good number of years, 2 decades. It's actually really rude. It's actually like, what? So you don't like me as a person? So just for the HR people out there, maybe think of a different line in future. It's a bit rude. But anyway, they helped you. They could see the talent.
So and you know what's interesting is that the firm that actually said the cultural fit thing, I get to work with them now that I work in-house. We actually they do a lot of our legal work, and to a slight degree, I can maybe see what they were speaking about.
So they were right.
No, but to a very small degree, though. And the reason why I say that is, then the firm I ended up working with, I realized was maybe a bit more laid back than the firm that initially was recruiting me. And I mean, my personality is, I'm kind of a laid back guy. So maybe they thought, you know, that wouldn't work as well. So they referred me to where I ended up being employed.
It's a great opportunity and great chance that happened, because obviously a lot of people would just get discarded.
Be like,
look, you're not right for us. So it's whoever that person was, well done to them for giving you that extra go. But it is a point as well for those in a similar position now, perhaps where they're interviewing for a number of places, or they're thinking about the applications going forward, that whilst it's very difficult to tell until you speak to people or even go into an office, you know, as much as I knock it earlier, cultural fit or personality fit is really important.
It's extremely. And you know, even like within the teams we work with, you know, I've worked in teams before where just personalities we just never fitted, and you could see it even in the quality of work we produce. And you work in other teams where when HR gets it right and recruits recruits the right fit, where you all fit and you work together, and you even see it in the quality of the work that's produced. So, so ended up being recruited, and they gave me an offer letter, and they said, okay, as long as your marks don't drop below a certain percentage, which, to be honest, wasn't bad. I think it was about 60%.
Okay.
You've got the job. Yeah.
And you're moving to Cape Town.
Yeah, moving to Cape Town. So, moved to Cape Town beginning of the January of the following year. And
so you said you got here. We said off camera that you got here in 2017.
Yes.
So 2017 January, you moved here.
Moved here. Started work.
Do you remember what date?
Yes, well, so I moved here.
I'll ask you. I'll tell you why in a minute.
I moved here on the 7th of January and then started work on the 9th of January.
Okay. So, no, because I got here on the 6th of January.
Oh, wow.
2017.
Oh, wow. So a day before.
Yeah. So I turned up at the airport. Yeah. I guess you might have driven. But it's interesting that time...
Yeah,
obviously we didn't know each other, but coming into the town to start our new lives, as it were. But I guess you would have, that December, you would have been organising your packing and trying to find a place to live and where do I live?
Well, it's funny now, but looking back, it was actually quite stressful because I was that year we were impacted by Fees Must Fall. So,
yes, of course, that was there. Yeah.
So we basically didn't have a whole final year, and we wrote exams up until the 22nd of December. So
yes, that was happening, wasn't it? Yeah. So you didn't really have a year, and then it was all there was a lot of protesting going on.
Yeah. So it was a crazy year because you're like, and there was talk about them moving exams to the following January.
Yeah, there was talk about that you weren't going to be able to take your exams. People weren't going to graduate. There was a difficult time for you guys. But so I agree the fees must fall, but can I just do this first?
I've got a job to start, guys.
I'll come out and join you in a minute.
And I mean, even kind of to segue into that is that, I'm starting a job with all these people who studied at like WITS and UCT and who, were impacted by Fees Must Fall, but, in the smaller universities, it felt as though the impact was really, really like more zoomed in. Reason being is that the smaller universities often, and this might be an assumption, you look at like the UCTs and the Vistas and you've got kids of the who's who going to those universities, and where as you have like this small university in PE, attracting people from the rural communities of the Eastern Cape where they really need fees to fall. Yeah. So it's not an option for there to not be a protest, So
I think, but that's the commercial realization, isn't it? That some of the universities, I know WITS because I did a talk there, but I don't know the people and the makeup of the people that well. But if it's not unfair of me to say that perhaps at UJ or UCT or Stellenbosch. Some of the students will be on bursaries or they'll have parents who are paying. Probably a bigger percentage than maybe at Nelson Mandela or UWC, for instance, in places like that. Because I know the Fees Must Fall at UWC was quite, quite from people who've worked with us that they've told us that it was pretty.
Intense.
Pretty intense. That's the best way of describing it. And even the Technicon around here. I remember I got here and it seemed okay, and then weeks later, barriers were going up and big fences. And So that's your final year. You've got this intense student demonstrations going on through the country, which thankfully didn't get too violent, but they were consistent and it was intense. It interrupted all of your studies for everybody. Geez, can you imagine if you were a student when you started, they had that, and then you ended, they had COVID? If there's anybody out there, please let me know, because I'd love to talk to them. Go, I'm not meant to get this degree, am I? So you got that, and anyway, so you're doing your exams up until the December 22nd. You're saying,
So you like
Jan 9, you're starting your new job.
I think for me, I did pretty well at university, so I knew I would pass everything. But you had people who were now starting jobs before their results came out, and because the academic year got pushed so far back, I actually know two people who started their jobs and realized that they'd failed subjects, and so they didn't actually have the degree to start to practice.
Wow.
So it just really threw things up in the air for a lot of people.
That's a mess.
Yeah.
For them. I mean, they'll get it. They'll get through it eventually, but that's not...
Yeah.
Doesn't do the confidence any good. Does it? But hopefully they're okay now. And
no, they're very okay. So.
Excellent. Good. Hopefully the firm's looked after them as well. So... Jan 9, you've moved into your new place, you've made the move. Did you come here alone, or were you already with your then fiance? Or
well, she was my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
So she ended up getting work in Cape Town, I think 2 or 3 months later.
Okay.
Then she moved up, and
so you came here on your own.
Yeah, initially came here on my own.
And did you move straight to the southern suburbs?
Yes, straight to the southern suburbs. Okay. I mean, I'm a southern suburbs boy through and through.
It's nice, very nice.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So, but it's nice. It's South African. I've worked with South African lawyers for 20 years, all around the world, and they're not afraid to move.
Yeah.
You guys are quite transient.
Yeah.
You'll see an opportunity, and not just in the law. Obviously, your brother's in Cambodia, and that's a really good trait. I suppose is probably a good example, a good word to use. It's a good trait to have that you've got. Obviously, there's always a little bit of fear, but you're not afraid to put yourself out there and going, you know what, I want to be the best I can be, and I want to go there, and I want to see what I can do, and Cape Town's not a bad place to move to. But in terms of your mindset, were you obviously you've gone through the sort of I want to be human rights, and then you go actually I've got quite an interest in the corporate commercial side of things. Was it kind of like the M&A deals and things like that you read about? Is that what got you excited about that space?
Yeah, definitely. Even now, like even though I work in-house now, primarily my work is still M&A based, and that's really what gets me excited. And so even back then, I would like read up. There was this M&A podcast, I just forget its name, but I used to listen to it quite a bit, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do.
Right. Well, if you remember it while we're talking, please shout it out. Yeah, I'd like to listen to that.
Yeah, so it was. I think actually, if you just go to Apple Podcasts and you just say M&A podcast, it will
something will come up. Yeah, cool.
I used to listen to that loads, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do.
Is that people in transactions talking about the M&A market?
Yeah, talking about like negotiation, like how to get the best.
I'm going to find that.
Yes,
and we will put it on the link below. So if we can, we'll have a look at it afterwards and have a look. Yeah,
and it's a lot of it is kind of international based, but in M&A, a lot of the principles work throughout the world. So. Even now, like there's some stuff where I'll be like, I've got a call tomorrow negotiating warranties, and I'll listen to some of the podcasts to see how some people go about the negotiation, when to go strong, when to, take your foot a bit off the pedal. And
so they're giving you nice tips as well. And have you ever put any in? It'd be interesting if you're against someone on a transaction or a negotiation and they've listened to the same podcast. I'm pretty sure you're...
well, what's interesting is I actually, not too long ago, I had to negotiate something against my previous boss. And so I knew his tricks, he knew my tricks. And
oh, really? Did you win?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Sorry for that is, but that's brilliant. But I mean, all's fair in love and war, as they say, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's the great thing about law. Certainly, what I used to know, my father-in-law was a advocate, and I've obviously met all of his friends, the lawyers, the advocates. They'll sit and scream and shout at each other over a negotiation table or in court and then go for a drink.
Literally.
And they go, it's just the business we're in.
Yeah, I always say, don't take anything personally. Even if it is personal, don't take it personally.
They don't know me. Okay, that's brilliant that you clearly had an interest in that space. Yeah. Now, look, you've got in day one. You're working for one of the big 5 firms in South Africa. You're doing your 2-year traineeship or candidate attorneyship, as they call it here, which is daunting. Again, mentioning no names. Sometimes it can be quite lowly paid. I mean, obviously at the big 5 and internationals, it's slightly better. But I've done a lot of talks with students who don't really understand sometimes that, you know, articles aren't, you know, it's hard work. Like it's you know, and depending on the principal you're working for will depend on what types of deals you're given to work on, the pay levels and things like that. But you're in a M&A team, I guess. And 2017, 18, and then 19, you would have graduated. But did you? Did you do rotations?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So how many did you do? Did you
So
3 or 4?
4, but 2 of the 4 were in the M&A team.
Okay, brilliant. Same principal or different parts?
Same guy,
Okay, cool. So that helps as well, because it means you're developing a relationship, you're getting to know the clients, the way of working. Good mentor?
Yeah, brilliant mentor. Okay, brilliant mentor. Yeah.
Which isn't, again, something that people always find, is it? I mean, you'll know yourself from some of your friends and university buddies, I guess, that... sometimes it's a horror story.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, I always say, like, when it comes to anything law, it's 50% the work and 50% relationship. So the relationship you have with your principal, the relationship you have with clients, or even at times the relationship you have with opposing counsel. So, like, I know some people who are in horror stories who are like, it's just all work and no relationship, and their principal's kind of like doesn't even, you know what their background is, or and things like that. So I was very fortunate in the sense that I kind of always worked for people who really took the opportunity to get to know me and build on that relationship.
That is important. Yeah. And it's something that I talk about a lot with managing partners and partners when we are looking at their recruitment strategies. You know, there's no point in people pretending to be something they're not, but at the same time, just be conscious that, you know, that this person is starting their career and they need a guidance, you know. And I think if you can find a good principal who actually learns your middle name or finds out where you've come from, it's a small thing, but it makes a difference. Cool. So the other thing to note as well is if you're doing 2 rotations in the same team, it's usually quite likely that the partner's going to ask for you to be in their team if you're being kept on. Clearly you were being kept on, and then was the position made available for you?
So in that same team. So I was kept on in the same team, position was made available. And
brilliant. And you were happy with that? You were like, this is great.
I was happy, exactly what I wanted, and
Okay, so then we get into your, I suppose, near 3 years working post admission or PQE, post qualification. But that is an interesting time for all of us, right? I mean, this is COVID.
No.
So how was it for you?
You know,
how was COVID for you?
So I started as an associate the year before COVID, which was, you know, jumping from CA. I feel like we don't talk enough about the jump from CA to associate. Like, it's a massive.
Please do.
Because it's all of a sudden now you've got this fee target. You're interacting with clients directly, and you know this is when now you have to get like your big boots on. And so that was a huge learning curve. And so as I was starting to set,
is there anywhere I've tried to find an example equate that leap? Is there anything? The only one that someone gave me once was the feeling of when you go from school to university. Like you go, your school, you don't realize until you go to university that everything's been handed to you.
Exactly.
And then you're at university and you don't know where the toilet is.
Exactly.
You don't know where the exit is.
Exactly.
Is it a bit like that?
Exactly. And it's exactly like that, because it's, on the one side, you're trying to learn as rapidly as possible, but on the one side, you're also trying to look like you know it all. So marrying those two worlds does become a bit tricky, because all of a sudden now you have to attract work from, whether it be clients or partners internally, them building the confidence that, hey, I can actually give Xhanti some work. So, I mean, I think that's something that is underestimated, is that you're trying to build trust from day one as a brand new lawyer.
internally. I mean, some of it would have been done during your article clerkship, and then obviously the partners talk and they go, she's okay, he's good, you know, that kind of thing. But you've still got to get known internally. Hi, I'm here, I'm available, and then deliver something first class.
Yeah. So, and I think that's what a lot of the long hours that's the big driver for the long hours, because, or let me actually say for me, because I was trying to get this so right to impress that all of a sudden something that should have maybe taken me an hour, now I'm spending 3 hours on, because I wanted to be in tip-top shape, which, you know, to be honest, as a junior lawyer at the time, nothing's really ever in tip-top shape, because just from a knowledge gap, like, you know, you're still learning, there's things that you haven't really been exposed to yet, and
it's a really good point, and I think it's something that a lot of lawyers, new lawyers, aren't really aware of, is that need to build relationships, need to marry the expectations of the partner that you're doing some work for. You don't know what they're like. They could be a smiley, very nice, happy, but when you're working for them, they could be drive you, you know, like your gut feeling is to say, I'll get it done in an hour, but actually what you produce in an hour might not be good enough.
Exactly.
There's a lot of pressure.
So adapting to that pressure is a real learning curve in your first year. And then, so that's 2019. And then all of a sudden we jumped to 2020, which, that was tough, because now, I mean, one of the things I like to do is to have a nice separation between work and home. And all of a sudden, like, home now becomes my work. And there became a bit of a blurred lines of, like, you know, people all of a sudden calling you on your mobile all the time. That Teams tone, even when it would ring, you'd just be like, I want to throw this laptop out the window. Because now all of a sudden everything's just meshed together. And there was no real separation. So,
I'm glad you've spoken about that, because I don't think it's something that enough lawyers have mentioned. Certainly people at the more, dare I say, junior end, who weren't necessarily aware of what to expect. But it is something that we need to be conscious of. That there was for quite a while, there was no separation. You would have been, whenever anybody wants to get hold of you, they know where you are. We weren't allowed to walk outside, were we? That must have been tough, especially for someone like you, who clearly likes to delineate their life, their work, that kind of thing. So is that something you found difficult to adapt to?
So it was really tricky to adapt to that. And, you know, I found myself, I don't think I'd worked harder in that COVID period than any other point in my life. Like, you know, once you're trapped at home, you wake up and you can't really leave. So you're like, okay, let me start work. So all of a sudden I'm at my desk at, like, I wake up pretty early. So all of a sudden I'm at my desk at 5:30. And then I work. And I'm like, you know, I'm not really hungry. I won't really take lunch. And then next thing it's 6 p.m. and you're like, well, nothing really nice is playing on the TV. Let me work some more. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, 10, 11 p.m. and the cycle just continued. And now the kind of dark side is that you measured against your billable hours. So all of a sudden you're pumping these incredible billable hours, but at the expense of, you know, my personal life. So that...
And your mental wellness.
Definitely.
And not only that, but... And I'm not speaking for your firm, but it's human nature for people to start expecting that. The bosses and HRs or whoever, finance people, whoever looking at your numbers, 2-3 months of that, they're going to be like, well, why is he dropping off?
Like, what's happening?
Don't expect this to be the normal, like pre-COVID. And that... Is that something you were feeling? It was just like, right, this is not.
Definitely. And, you know, because for a long while, I kind of wore this badge of honor of, like, I've got these great billable hours and my work's translating to fees. But then I could really feel it take a toll on me physically, where I was like, why am I tired all the time? And then I realized I only got 5 hours of sleep. And
oh, really?
Yeah, so it's, and then I had to really make that cut of being like, okay, no, this is actually unhealthy, and it's moving me definitely in a direction I don't want to go in.
That's a really, really good thing you've just said there, and it's a great lesson for anybody listening, because you had the self-awareness to notice what was going on with you, and you took control of that fact and went, you know what, I don't like where this might end, which, not a lot of lawyers either do or have or allow themselves the space to think like that. So it's great that you did that. And I implore others to do that as well. Just maybe take a step back occasionally and go, okay, where does this end? And okay, so what year are we talking? So now 2021?
So now this is 2020. I think when we started 2021, we kind of, we were still in COVID, but things were easing up a bit. And, my boss at the time, he was a great guy in the sense that his philosophy is that use your daylight hours as productively as possible. So he was really good at setting those kind of boundaries of being like, okay, it's 5:30, I'm out of here. And he is, till this day, the most productive person I know, because he sits there at his I would even ask him, when do you go to the bathroom? And he's like, he needs to use his day in such a way that he can avail himself to his family, come the afternoon.
That is a wonderful lesson. First of all, obviously, we're not going to mention any names, but this is clearly a very prominent partner level lawyer at a big firm in Cape Town. The fact that he's able to show the younger generation, look, this is... Use your time as productively as possible, but avail yourself to your family in the evenings. Amazing.
So he was very instrumental in that. But I think I built this bad habit to the point that it was really hard to snap out of. So kind of now my third year as an associate, I just slipped into this habit so much that it was like, I was like, how do I shake this? How do I imagine a new normal of like actually being able to work, from 8:30 to 5. And I want to say my biggest regret is that I never got that right at the time. And so, then I started to be like, maybe I need to look beyond where I currently am, because I just wanted that fresh start of being like, okay, I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you were struggling to actually make that break. You know that you knew that you needed it, but you were struggling. So you were looking, which again is what most people face. They don't know the difference. This is why they come to recruiters like us and go, help me get out of here. And sometimes we'll sit there and go, let's look at what you're doing. And maybe you just want to stay. In fact, I said this to someone the other day. I was like, stay where you are, but just change your lens slightly. But the obvious reaction sometimes is to go, I need to get out of here. I need to change. Is that where you felt like you were heading?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, when when our daughter came along, that now really...
Oh, yes. So when did your first get... 2021?
2021.
Oh, wow.
That now really changed the game, because it's now... all of a sudden completely like shifted my whole mindset. And, it's a tricky one, because now all the people I worked with were so used to me working at a particular way. Now I come back from paternity leave and I'm like, actually, you can't call me after 5 unless it's an emergency. Like, send me a WhatsApp and then I'll see if I can get back to you. And, and then it became this real shock to the system. So I think when our daughter was born, we really were like, okay, like I need to do something. And so that's when I started to explore, do I move to something else? Do I try to adapt where I am? But if I'm honest, I think at the time I could really feel like a desire for something else, just to experience somewhere different. I think at that time I was where I used to work for about 5.5 years, and it's a great place to work.
But it's also getting to that point of 5.5 years, 6 years. That's a long time. That's the only thing you've really ever seen in your career.
Own the future of recruitment today. Access a secured, anonymized global talent pool. Connect with qualified candidates through multiple private label databases. By creating your own Stintit, you can achieve the following. Step 1. Access your company dashboard by logging in. Step 2. Click Find Candidate to search for the ideal candidate. To begin, create a new position and fill in the necessary details. The system will search through multiple databases to find the ideal match for you. Step 3. Once the search is completed, you will instantly receive multiple 100% matches which have all been fully verified and KYC checked. Step 4. When the candidate chooses to opt in, you can view their skill set and experience. Only when you are satisfied, use your credit to unlock the candidate's full profile. Once unlocked, the profile remains unlocked for all future searches. What makes this system truly revolutionary is that when you search, the search will continue in all the different databases until a 100% match is found. Each database involved and the candidate share in the revenue, and that's how this circular revenue model and shared database benefit all parties involved.
All of a sudden, I found myself in this space where I started to view, because if I'm honest, I think in my early 20s, I started to view work as being my life. And my actual life, my life outside of work, was revolving around work, where I actually really needed to shift that mentality to be like, work is my livelihood, but it's not my actual life. And so now I found myself in a place where I'm able to balance things so much better, because I know that, I really love my job and I enjoy my job. I love my colleagues. I love what I get to do. But that needs to come to a hard stop of like, at some point, for me to bring my best to work the following day, I do need recharge time.
Yeah. I mean, you've said some lovely things there. I mean, I think, the livelihood soundbite is a really one I'm definitely going to clip out. I think that's, but it's something that it's great. Again, it shows you as a person who's, through, I guess, a bit of hard work and also who you are naturally, that you're able to take these moments where you're like, no, I need to make a change here. You seem to be very good at taking a step back, which not a lot of people do. And we do tend to lose ourselves in the work. I think sometimes as well, you've clearly made that decision once your daughter came along. I had a similar situation where before we moved here, obviously we found that we moved within a day of each other. But we were in Hong Kong for nearly 10 years, and my job and my business was my life, and I loved it. And my wife understood that, and she and hugely supportive, and we had a good time there. But what I realised is that the kids need you. It sounds like an old adage, but you don't get that time back. And it's nice that you had that moment where you're like, well, my daughter's now, she's now 2 and a bit, isn't she? It is important. And that's why I suggested to the wife that we move here, because I wanted to spend more time with family. You can't do it forever.
You honestly can't do it forever. And I always say that, I want to be the best, whether I'm at work, I want to be the best attorney I can be. If I'm at home, I want to be the best husband and father I can be. And the only way I can do that is to try my best to live with everything in balance. So one of the things I often recommend, particularly to people starting out their legal journey, sharpen your legal skill as much as you can, so that once you do a task, it doesn't take you 10 hours to do what could be done in 2 hours. So what I do is, even if I'm negotiating a contract, let's say with opposing counsel, when I listen to their arguments or when I'm negotiating, I'm also listening to learn, because I'm like, okay, this is a great teaching moment for me that I get to put that in my bank of knowledge, so that when I now go draft another share sale agreement, I can be like, can use what I know, what I learned from, the opposing counsel, and just, and so to work as productively as possible.
That's a brilliant lesson for anyone out there. Anyone listening to this, that is a great lesson for them to take away. Is that you can learn from every interaction you've had to work to hone your own skills and how efficient you can be, so that you can then go on and be the best husband and father that you want to be outside of the work. There'll be the days where you work a bit late.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's always, I like to think of it as like, you're on a unicycle juggling all these balls, and you're just trying to, you're not always stable, and sometimes some balls do drop, and that's okay too. But I think it's just being cognizant of the fact that you're not holding one ball, you're always juggling balls. So,
And do you think that was instilled in you from your parents, that kind of outlook? Is that something that you think you've picked up from your family, or is it something that you nature versus nurture, I suppose?
So I grew up actually with very busy parents. And I think when we were in high school, I think the penny dropped for them that they were so busy that, some balls were dropped. And I can't really even blame my parents. They were trying to do the best they thought at the time. So, and I remember at the time, even being that young, I said to myself that, look, I love what my parents were able to do. I love what they were able to achieve. And I would love to do not the same, but I would love to get to where they've gotten to. But I want to explore the option, is there a way I can get to where they got to in life, but using a different route? So, and it's constantly a time of discovery, of being like, how do I, meet my career goals without working 16-hour days?
There's a book in there. So when you find out the answer, there's a book. I really admire that. I really do, because I've, as I said, I've worked with lawyers for 20 years, and I've seen people, up until very recently, because I suppose largely driven, certainly I'm talking specifically on the law firm side, who are the bulk of our clients, so I'm not saying anything bad, but the environment, when you are billing by the hour, or there is a culture of consistently billing for time, then that is really what largely as a junior you are judged on. And so, maybe not here as much, but certainly in some of the cities that I've worked in, like Hong Kong and Singapore, New York and London, it's like a badge of honor if you work till 4 a.m, go home, take a shower and come back and do it all again. I mean, those people usually look like dead men walking after a couple of years and then leave. It seems so counterproductive. But it's great that you are trying to find that balance and the importance of that balance. And I think law firms are making a big shift at the moment, where they're moving away from it being a badge of honor. Definitely. I think they're seeing that actually, if they keep the people less burnt out, they'll have them for longer, and then they'll be better lawyers. I think we're making that break.
Definitely.
But it's important for anyone listening to here to follow your footsteps and really keep considering that. No one's going to really thank you if you, just by killing yourself. You might have the odd partner who's been like, oh, brilliant. They've worked all night and they've got it done, but there's no longevity in there.
No, completely agreed. And I think it's a great move, actually, like that I'm seeing now in law firms, to think more than just, bum in chair kind of. Even, the places I've worked, it's been great to see that, of like, actually we offer this and you can do this, and you can to kind of just get your mind thinking of like, there's other things to be done outside of work. And even like, one of the places I worked, there was even a kind of a billable hour incentive, that if you joined some of the firms kind of like mentoring programs that could count towards your billable hours. So that was that was really great.
Oh, so people can help others, and that counts towards their own. That's a good. That's very good.
So I found it really brilliant because it really makes you much more of a well-rounded attorney.
That's interesting. And one of the things I do want to get onto with you is really that what you think might happen with the advent of technology, and whether that's because I think it's going to be a great move. Yeah, we're kind of heading in that direction now. But I just wanted before we get onto that, I just want a couple of other things in terms of your, it sounds like you had a great family network when you were growing up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, growing up in a nice, in a smaller town city, but lovely family, supportive, brothers who beat you up, the usual stuff. But you've clearly got you've got a passion for family. Yeah. Clearly, it comes through your own kids and everything, and your mum and dad working really hard, but then realizing, like you said, when you're in high school, maybe we need to, spend more time with the kids, and you've learned a lot from that. Would you say that the family has probably been the biggest influence on you, or is it your friend group or your wife, or? Yeah,
so like a combination of the people who are sort of around me. So definitely family and the kind of friends that I have. Even when I was killing myself with like those crazy hours, my friends would be the first to be like, hey, this is not going to end well. So,
really? That's good.
And, I can really appreciate that because I think to me it was highlighting a blind spot that I didn't see at the time. For me, that's a big driver of...
Especially when you love your work.
Exactly.
Which a lot of lawyers do. They love the law. They love doing the deals. Yeah. It's easy to get wrapped up in it.
Yeah. And I love that you touch on that because, what I do is really my passion. It's really my passion. So, spending hours doing it, it's not hard for me to do because I love what I do. So,
I'm the same. Yeah. So, for me, it's not work.
Yeah.
But you do need to break away. Yeah. I mean, it'd be like, if you love golf, you can't just golf all day. You have to do something different at some point. Yeah. But it's great that you've got that. It's nice to get that impression of you, that you've got this nice support network around you, and that you clearly really value their input, and you've got, and you're quite deliberate in your thinking as well, which is great. Yeah. It's really good. It's a lot of lessons that people can take away from that. In terms of you and your, I mean, there's so much else we will talk about in a minute, but in terms of your journey, you're still, let's say, still relatively at the beginning of at the beginning of the journey. You're certainly not, old and tired and looking for a retirement. Yeah. But what are your aspirations? Do you have any like general career aspirations? Anything that you're still aiming for?
Yeah. So I think now I found my career.
Obviously, we're going to be conscious of your current employer.
So now everyone I think my career has been, I think maybe because of my career background, has been very fast tracked in some ways to get to where I am. Because all of a sudden I found myself in kind of like a senior position, and I had to very quickly like open my mind to, okay, now all of a sudden I work with a team, and like, how's the well-being of that team? And so I think when I look at kind of like a bird's eye view of what I'd like to achieve, is that I would like to build the kind of team that I think I needed when I was a junior attorney.
Brilliant.
So, and that's what I'm trying to kind of achieve within the space I work in, and constantly checking in. So, how's this? How's that? Do you feel as though you're learning at the rate you need to be learning? You don't have to get into specifics, but is there anything maybe at home that impacts your life at work that we might need to be sensitive around, and things like that? So those were the kind of things that I needed when I was like a baby lawyer, and I'm trying to really bring into my team now.
It's a really good thing, and it's a really good sign of someone who is and will continue to be a really good manager and leader. It's something that I talk about quite a lot here as well, because I've made those mistakes in the past, but right now not so much, because I'm focusing on creating a similar environment to what you're saying there, which is what would I have appreciated, to get the best out of people. Yeah. And a lot of it is really checking in or just trusting them to get on with it. Yeah. That's also a good thing. Yeah. Trust goes a long way. Yeah. Not checking up on them all the time. Yeah. But it sounds like you're very conscious of, well, you said it at the beginning, of impacting those around you. Yeah. And that clearly is genuine from you. Yeah. That's something. And I guess, and the proof's in the pudding, as they say. The people will respond to you. They'll respond to you as a manager. You clearly seem very cool, very nice, but clearly also know how to get the deal done. You might get a few applications of this. People will be like, I listened to your podcast. Have you got a job?
Well, we are recruiting.
There you go. Well, we'll put all the links in there. But you sound like someone most people would love to work for. I'll go through the CVs for you. I'll sift them for you. You've talked about a couple of things, and it's quite nice to have you've talked about a couple of notable moments. And, our journey here in Cape Town, whilst it's almost identical in terms of time, has really been met by, well, if you take the back end of your studies, you go, fees must fall. Moving to Cape Town where we had no water.
Oh, yes. At the time, actually, like day zero was looming.
People forget that. And I always tell the story is that when I landed on the plane from Hong Kong, I've got my kids in the back of the car, me and my wife, we're exhausted and driving up. And then, that outside the airport here, there's the big signs.
Yes.
And it just kept saying, day zero is coming. We're running out of water. Don't use water. I'm saying, where have we moved to? But these are all points, and then obviously there was a bit of a lull, a year, and then COVID. Yeah. But these have been very formative times for you. But is there anything else that you can think of off the top of your head that have been notable moments or notable people that have helped you so far in that career? Your career?
It's weird because I think one of the people that had a really huge impact on me and kind of even just developing my confidence is a substitute teacher I once had when I was in high school. So like the beginning of high school for me, like academically was really bad, like just barely scraping through. And I think that teacher actually identified in me that you're sitting on a well of potential, but let's see how we get it out. And so she kind of was like, okay, let's work with you on a bit of tutoring. And all of a sudden I developed all this confidence and, I like jumped up to like the, top 10 of my grade. And it's all because one person just paid particular attention to someone they could see some potential in.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm still in contact with her to this day. And often in moments where I even doubt my own potential, I think back to that, like she was able to identify it in a class with another 30. I went to a boys' school with another 30 boys.
I went to a boys' school.
And you know how it is in boys' schools. Yes.
It's not easy.
So I was like,
you better learn to fight.
You never think of teachers as people who need to have attention to detail, but the way her attention to detail was to see potential within a crowd. And so she saw that in me, and I always try to see that in people I interact with, whether it be at work or even in my personal life, or being like, how do we, unlock your potential and for you to be kind of the best person you can be.
That's incredible. That's incredibly positive that she had that, and still to this day. She's had that, but also what a teacher. And a substitute teacher. Just came in and was like, obviously standing in the front of the class and has pinpointed, no, this boy's got talent, and we just need to hone it. Well, whoever that teacher is, well done to her. That's amazing. And you're still in touch now as well.
Still in touch.
That's amazing. It's amazing that people have that. It just goes to show the impact, doesn't it, that one can have. Well done to you and to her.
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, I had a similar upbringing with all boys school, and and needing a little bit of direction occasionally. It's nice to think back. Well, that's awesome. I've got one more question for you on this, and then we're going to flick to a couple of questions that our locals audience have sent in as well. But it's been so interesting to hear about your journey and how you think, because it really I'm not going to say all the time, because obviously I don't know you well enough, but you're coming across as someone who has been quite deliberate, quite careful, really genuinely cares about those around him, which is amazing, which is great, because it makes you're going to be probably are and will be a superb leader within the businesses that you work for. But then you see the importance of the balance, the family as well, and that is very striking when it comes to the millennial generation, of which I believe you are, certainly from your YouTube channel, which we'll mention later, because there is a generational thing. It's a generation. It's something I admire in the millennial generation, is this ability to go, hold on a minute, this isn't going to end well if I do this, and to be able to bring yourself back, which is remarkable. But in terms of the last question for this segment that I really wanted to ask you was, is there one or two things maybe that you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, I think, definitely one of them is, I kind of touched on it earlier, is that, I think I had a point in my career where it was all about, me just doing the task that was in front of me. So me just executing the task, but never really building relationship with the person who gave the task. So whether that be the partner or whether that be the client. And, as any lawyers listening to this will know, that like relationships with clients is really expensive. Not expensive, is really valuable.
Can be expensive.
So relationship with clients is really valuable. And so I think in the first bit, maybe like a year or two of my career, I completely missed that, because I just thought all people want to see is a good work product.
For you were consumed by getting the job done, when actually you really should have been focusing partly on building that relationship with the person who gave you the work as well.
And even to kind of piggyback on that, having a good relationship even with your colleagues is really important. Your colleagues are, I like to think of it, they like your best business card. Like, they'll be like, oh, maybe I'm a bit inundated at the moment, refer something to Xhanti, or, so having a good, nice working relations, and it just makes the workplace so much more pleasant to have someone who you can actually go sit at their desk, have a 5-minute coffee, and so that would probably be the main one. Yeah. And then other markers would probably be, things I knew then. I really wish I knew then that failure is definitely on the road to success. And honestly, failure is not the end of the world, because I remember if I would get a task wrong, I would like beat myself up so much about it, where the only learning really opportunity you have is by getting things wrong, particularly as a junior. In fact, I always used to say to candidate attorneys I had when I was still practicing in a law firm, I expect you to get things wrong, because when you get things wrong, that's my opportunity to teach you how to get it right. So those would definitely be the two things.
That's a brilliant note to end this section on, is that because it is so true that failure is one step more on the road to success. It's, I think we're all guilty of that when we're youngsters coming into the workplace, that we feel like we have to get it all right. And one of the things I try to tell people when they work with me is that don't be afraid to make mistakes. Really don't. Put your hand up if you don't know, or just, I don't care how many times you ask me, but if you get it wrong, it's not going to be the end of the world. And it, like you say there, it's a chance to learn. So, well, look, on that note, I'm going to end this section, but that was wonderful to get to know you. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. Like I said, there's a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, but thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, and it's been so good to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.